Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Emma Gillespie.
I'm Lucy Tassel.
The 2026 Adelaide Writers Week has been cancelled. It follows backlash over a decision to remove Dr Randa Abdel-Fattah from the festival program. The Palestinian-Australian author and advocate was slated to speak as part of the Adelaide Festival Writers Week event next month. However, the festival board said her previous comments mean it would not be culturally sensitive to include her in the wake of the Bondi terror attack. Now, Abdel-Fattah has been a vocal critic of Israel and accused of antisemitism, but the writer has called the decision a, quote, blatant and shameless act of anti-Palestinian racism. Politicians have weighed in, some supporting and some condemning the move, while dozens of writers and officials have cut ties with the festival. And as the fallout from Abdel-Fattah's removal continues, in today's deep dive, we are going to take you right through this controversy from the very beginning, leading up to the cancellation, as well as talk about what this means for the future of the Adelaide Festival.
Emma, this story has been evolving for about a week now. I was on leave for that week, so it was one of the things I kind of had to catch up on when I was coming back into the news this week. Before we get into everything, can you explain a little bit about this actual event? What's the Adelaide Festival and what's its Writers' Week?
Yeah, so the Adelaide Festival is an internationally recognised arts event. It's been running every year since 1960. And to give you a bit of a sense of its status on the world stage, its sister festival is the Edinburgh Festival, a globally renowned one. So the Adelaide Festival is really considered one of the top festivals in the world.
Yeah.
And as part of its annual program, it includes the Adelaide Writers Week. That is Australia's largest free literary festival. And this year, that week was set to run from the 28th of February to the 5th of March. As with most festivals of this nature, you might imagine there are several panellists involved, invited to speak across various events, dozens of writers among them, and that included Palestinian-Australian author Dr Randa Abdel-Fattah. But last week, when you were enjoying leave, Lucy, and as many people might have missed and are trying to catch up on now, festival organisers announced that Abdel-Fattah would be removed from the 2026 Writers' Week program.
What did they say was the reason for this?
The festival board released a statement. Now, it was quite broad or vague in nature, but it did say, given Abdel-Fattah's past statements, we have formed the view that it would not be culturally sensitive to continue to include her on the program so soon after Bondi. Now, that comment referring to the 14th of December Bondi terror attack. The board said it, quote, does not suggest in any way that Dr Randa Abdel-Fattah or her writings have any connection with the tragedy at Bondi.
Okay.
But that's pretty much all we got.
Do we know what the festival means when it says past statements? Do they give any specifics?
The festival didn't give specifics, but we do have some context if we look a bit more into this author and her past. So as I mentioned, Dr Randa Abdel-Fattah is a Palestinian-Australian author. She's also a lawyer, an advocate. She's published 12 books and she's a researcher at Macquarie University in Sydney.
Yeah.
She specialises in areas including Islamophobia and Palestine. Now, she is also a vocal critic of Israel on the record.
Yeah.
And at the end of 2024 wrote on social media, quote, may 2025 be the end of Israel. She also wrote, quote, if you are a Zionist, you have no claim or right to cultural safety.
Okay.
The Macquarie Uni Vice-Chancellor, a guy called Bruce Doughton, was actually questioned about Abdel-Fattah's comments at a 2025 parliamentary hearing into anti-Semitism at universities. Now, he said that some of her comments could be, quote, construed as anti-Semitic, but the legal definition was not clear enough for disciplinary action.
Okay.
He did note, or was cautious to highlight, that the Macquarie University doesn't actually pay Abdel-Fattah's salary. He noted that that comes from an Australian Research Council grant.
Okay.
The Macquarie Vice-Chancellor also said that she doesn't regularly teach or interact with students in her role as a researcher at the uni. But following all of this, the ARC actually conducted a 10-month review into Abdel-Fattah. It temporarily suspended her research grant during that process.
Yeah.
But ultimately, she was cleared of wrongdoing last month.
So just to recap, the Adelaide Festival invites Abdel-Fattah to speak at the Writers' Week, then it uninvites her, saying it wouldn't be culturally sensitive following Bondi. It says it's done this in light of past statements, but it doesn't actually say what any of those statements it's thinking about were.
Exactly. You're following.
Well, obviously that's not where this story ends. What has happened since then, and how has Abdel-Fattah responded?
So the author called her removal from the festival, quote, a despicable attempt to associate her with the Bondi massacre. She said the board's reasoning suggests that her mere presence is culturally insensitive, but that she remains confident the writing community will, quote, ultimately respond with principle and integrity.
Right.
Lawyers representing Abdel-Fattah have now written to the Adelaide Festival Board asking for an explanation about how and why it decided to remove the author from the event. So as you correctly pointed out, Lucy, the board didn't give specific examples of what she had said and what had led to the decision. But Michael Bradley from Mark Lawyers wrote, quote, as a matter of basic procedural fairness to Dr Abdel-Fattah, please identify with specificity each of the past statements made by her on which the board relied in making its decision. The lawyer said she is, quote, entitled to this information.
So she said she expects the writing community to kind of rally behind her. Have they done so?
Hello, my name's Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA. I'm just popping in to interrupt this video to ask if you could do one thing for me, and that is press subscribe on this YouTube channel. It's the best way to show us that you love what we do and that you're here for our future. And now, back to the deep dive.
We have seen a significant response against this decision, and exactly in line with what Abdel-Fattah had called from in terms of from her contemporaries and colleagues in the industry. Readers and Writers Against Genocide confirmed that dozens of authors had withdrawn from the Writers' Week due to the removal of Abdel-Fattah almost immediately after the announcement last week. And since then, over 100 authors, academics, commentators, political figures have all pulled out of the event. All up, it's around 180 participants who have withdrawn their support. Politically, the removal of Abdel-Fattah has also drawn a lot of conversation, some support, some condemnation. We've heard a lot from South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas. He has supported the festival's decision to remove this author from its speaking program, but there are some concerns around when the Premier weighed in and how much say he had on the removal of Abdel-Fattah. Malinauskas noted that, quote, post-Bondi, when it was drawn to my attention that this woman was still on the program, I absolutely expressed my view and my concern around it. I made that clear. That view, of course, being that he thought she should be removed from the event. However, we've got the Greens at a federal level who have accused the Premier of putting political pressure on the Adelaide Festival Board. In particular, Green Senator and arts spokesperson Sarah Hanson-Young, who said Malinauskas, quote, must change course to stem the collapse of this beloved arts institution that must start with reinstating author Dr Randa Abdel-Fattah.
And beyond being the arts spokesperson for the Greens, Hanson-Young is also a senator for South Australia, so that's also why she would be weighing in.
Exactly.
Have we heard from the festival board since that initial statement?
We have heard quite a bit, both from organisers as a whole and also from several individual board members and leaders within the festival and the Writers' Week teams. On Friday, I think it's easiest if I take you through this chronologically, Lucy. On Friday, a joint statement from the festival and the Writers' Week welcomed community discussion on the issue and said all concerns are being collated and communicated back to the Adelaide Festival Board. That same day, 3 board members stepped down. Then separately on Sunday, Adelaide Festival Chair Tracy Whiting announced she would resign effective immediately on Sunday evening. In a statement, she said recent decisions were bound by certain undertakings and my resignation enables the Adelaide Festival as an organisation to refresh its leadership and its approach to these circumstances. But Whiting was quite vague, did not really give a specific reason.
I have to say I don't know what she means by certain undertakings. Has she made that clear at all?
No, we haven't heard anything further from Whiting on the matter. I think it's also worth noting that the Writers' Week program was removed from the festival website last week. The event said that it did this as a temporary measure, quote, in respect to the wishes of the writers who've recently indicated their withdrawal from the festival while they work through changes to the website, in their words. But ultimately, the list has not been on the website for several days now.
And that brings us to the start of this week when we had another resignation, right?
Correct. So the controversy surrounding the removal of this author from the Writers' Week has continued to intensify, with the director of the AWW, the Adelaide Writers' Week, Louise Adler, also resigning. Adler is a really influential figure in Australian publishing. For those who are not familiar with her, she was awarded the Order of Australia Medal for services to literature in 2008. She's also a Jewish woman and the daughter of Holocaust survivors.
Right.
Adler said she quit the Adelaide Writers' Week because she, quote, cannot be party to silencing writers.
Yeah.
Now, in an opinion piece for The Guardian, she explained writers and writing matters. Even when they are presenting ideas that discomfort and challenge us, we need writers now more than ever.
Yeah.
Adler claims also that she strongly opposed the decision to disinvite Abdel-Fattah from the AWW in the very first place and said the move weakens freedom of speech in Australia. So those comments really painting a picture of disunity and fractions within the festival and the Writers' Week organisation.
Yeah, and as we've said many times on this podcast before, we don't have a legal constitutional right to freedom of speech in Australia. So what Adler, I guess, is talking about is more like the cultural concept of freedom of speech, of having open discussions.
And particularly as it pertains to a festival of this nature, the Adelaide Festival being this real arts hub, this globally recognised celebration of arts and culture.
So we've seen, as you've said, a significant staff departure across the festival board and in relation to Writers' Week specifically. Where does that leave things?
On Monday, we heard from organisers in a post to social media saying that they were navigating a complex and unprecedented moment. They said they would share further updates when they were available, and we got a significant update on Tuesday. The board of the Adelaide Festival announced the cancellation of the upcoming Writers' Week altogether, and it also issued an apology to Abdel-Fattah. A statement from the festival said it rescinded the author's invitation originally out of respect for a community experiencing what it called the pain from a devastating event, referring there to the Bondi terror attack. The statement goes on to say, instead, this decision has created more division, and for that we express our sincere apologies. Now, given the number of authors who pulled out, estimated to be around 180, the festival said it just doesn't see how the event can go ahead this year, and it called that a deeply regrettable outcome. The statement, as I mentioned, apologised to Abdel-Fattah and said, we also apologise for how the decision was represented and reiterate this is not about identity or dissent, but rather a continuing rapid shift in the national discourse around the breadth of freedom of expression in our nation following Australia's worst terror attack in history.
So what does this mean for the future of the event?
Well, Lucy, based on this statement, it does seem like organisers do want to regroup for next year so that the Writers' Week can return. It doesn't indicate that this is a permanent decision, more that there's just not enough time now to recalibrate for this year. As I flagged earlier, 4 of the 7 festival board members had already resigned leading up to that statement, but we now know that the remaining board members will also step down. The festival said that this was to, quote, allow for an orderly transition to a new board to secure the success of the 2026 Adelaide Festival and beyond. Now, I think it's important to note the Writers' Week has been cancelled, but the rest of the festival program is still slated to go ahead. So that includes, all kinds of arts and culture events, performances, live theatre, music, etc. But the focus now, according to the event, is on ensuring a successful Adelaide Festival proceeds in a way which safeguards the long and rich cultural legacy of our state, but also protects the hardworking staff delivering this important event.
Thanks so much for explaining all of that, Emma, and thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back this evening with the headlines. Until then, have a great day.